This is the images of nightmares, Arwen commented. They both knew that they had to continue on to find out what happened, and as they did, they came across two creatures which were scavenging the area, but these were not the wildlife of Aphalas. These were strange, half-demonic, half-man, and when they caught the scent of Arion and Arwen, they turned and began pursuing with a pace that was half a steed, half a fully fit man, and Arion, knowing they were no match for them, fled. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel, and to this, a bit of a throw-in lore video, as it is not to do with the Protector races, it is to do with their enemies. We are going to be breaking down each of the more antagonistic forces in Aphalas as a sort of mirror to the first series we did. And for this, what we will be doing is looking at the demons, the Meada, the Korithadar, the first ones, and all the rest of it. So, to begin with, the demons at first, how they are created is that they are conjured out of a mix of demonic magic and effectively the earth, a mix of flame and dirt almost, in a similar sort of style in some cases to how some orcs are bred in certain fantasies, but that is the purpose of the fire pits. The fire pits exist to create demons. You've got some over in Tonri's domain. You have a circle of them on Argyphris, and then you've got the big fire pits where Nagrasek churns his out, and these are able to churn out rank upon rank of demonic force. In a quite substantial case, it's the only hindrance really is that they have to be constantly kept aflame, and the magic that also brings them about, and that causes limitations. Like with Nagrasek having been imprisoned, his fire pits, whilst they were still churning out, he was at a much slower pace. And when Sinepia was absent from Baralarth, the fire pits under there were completely absent. No, were completely extinguished, rather. When they first came about, the demons, known as the first demons, the regular Adar, almost, they were conjured by Sinepia at an unknown location within Nacerez. So they started off in Argyphris, and they were created as an effort for her to try and bring about a more rank upon rank servant for herself. Instead of just having to rely on corrupting things, she wanted an already corrupted creature. But the problem was that at first, whilst they worked and the first demon war occurred and everything that amounted from that, after that, it came to be proven that the demons could not really be controlled, even by Sinepia, and they ended up actually rebelling. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with the music. But they ended up rebelling, and it caused a lot of it. They had grown to such a sizable amount, and had also had some other allies such as the Wyverns, who by that point had been abandoned. But they created such a massive threat that it was the first time all of Aphalas, including Sinepia herself, all allied with one another to stop them. And that is why Argyphris is now the way it is and the Ruby Mist exists. they sunk the land that was around the Alano Savannah, which then forms the Sentinel Plateau. They did what they could, pretty much, to try and limit how much the demons could operate. But seeing as there were already peoples at this point living on Onokiris, they couldn't exactly just up and abandon all of them. But the first demons would never advance from that. Although pockets of them, when Cenevia did return, were able to make their way to Galakaros, partly through her agents. But then we move on to the two main ones, these real mainstays, the sort of Mordor orcs and trolls of this world, or the Warhammer orcs and goblins, or all of these things, and that is the Meader demons and the Korith Adar demons. The Korith Adar are hulking brutes who are slower but stronger, and then the Meader are almost the opposite. They are shorter but faster, and that little dialogue I did at the start that they were reading, that was not about Meader per se, that was about a special iteration of them that Tonri created. But both the Meader and the Korith Adar were made as an effort to try and replicate, or basically trying to perfect the first demons, so they could maintain that chaos but could also be controlled. Unfortunately, both fell flat because they needed a level of chaos to have that strength that, unfortunately, if you needed to control them, you wouldn't be able to have that level. So neither one of them were able to achieve the goal that they were designed to be, and there were other efforts implemented as well, but none of them really ever occurred. Now, and these forces get repeated, and there's like small different changes between the ones Tonri creates, the ones Necrosac creates, and the ones that Cenevia creates, but most of the time they are really rank upon rank the same, per se. But then you move on to the bit more of the rarer ones, and at first I'm going to start with the ones that do feature in the book, and that is the Quarky, or yeah, that is their feasting lands, and those are the ones, they are almost an elite demon force that were picked by Tonri as his sort of advanced agents, or scouting parties, or all of these different things, and pretty much throughout the first book they pop up at several points and rain all sorts of havoc around the houses of humans, but they were more limited to Tonri. And the reason why, in that sense, that they are called half-man is because they were quite literally, what they were forces of the humans of Hilor and previous forces that Tonri had captured in Tonri's War, that he kept as almost his personal god. He kept them hidden and concealed for a very long time. But what they were captured humans, primarily from, well, I say House Hilor, Rovloror, as that was the kingdom that mostly placed his power out of the humans. And pretty much he took them back, slowly corrupted them with what limited magic he himself possesses, although one of his lieutenants at this time does actually help quite a bit at this. But he effectively turns and exposes them to the same power of the fire pits, and it just completely twists them. And it's also why there's some of the limited ones that can actually also talk as well, because most just kind of sneer and that, but they are able to talk, even though it's quite broken unnerving. And then we move on to the others, and it is also notable that Nagrosek never did this. He never actually took the humans and tried to twist them. He mainly just kept to his own forces and all that. But the other side of all of these things is that the flying demons, a force that has had a couple of different iterations, and neither one of them have particularly worked as they were intended. One of the creatures that is in Aphalas and is technically a good creature, although they tend to fall at the mercy a lot of the time, are bats. And originally, bats were what were attempted to be used to be crossed. So you'd have almost these, they'd still be demonic warriors, but they'd have wings obviously larger than a bat's wings, but they never ended up working because other forces were able to pick up on the threats, and various Feldspar enchanters, the creators, all of them, and it was completely cut off and burst onto, and all the remaining sort of colonies of bats were moved away from Senevia's axis. And then the other attempt was an effort that both Senevia and Nagrosek tried to do of their own accord, and that was kidnap Ajati and twist them. Now the thing is about the Ajati is that, and this is where it got unveiled, they are so avid to defending Aphalas and everything that they are immune to corruption. They cannot be corrupted. They can get slaughtered and everything. Ignoring that. Anyway. the attempt at the winged demons, it wasn't so much something that proved so threatening that it had to be dealt with. It's more the case that the Ajati caught wind of it very fast and basically made it impossible that they would just fight, and they would fight and fight until the end. To make sure that it couldn't happen to them. And those that were deployed, they were deployed very, very rarely, and honestly, they really didn't end up doing that much. But the ones that were the biggest eye-opening threat on the level and scale of the first demons were the Scorpio Koreth. And that's when Natog's people come in. Natog and his people are a race of giant scorpions. They are ancient guardians and protectors. But at some point, after Senevia, a colony of his people that existed elsewhere were kidnapped, and they were taken somewhere no one really knows where, because this was actually Nagrosek, this wasn't Senevia, but he was able to, and this isn't a case where the scorpions were corrupted or anything, this was a case where they were effectively, I guess the best word is probably dissected, and their blood and their almost anatomy was crossed with the Koreth Adar, and it allowed for this limited, and it was limited because it was a singular colony, force of Koreth Adars that then had the power of the ancient scorpions. They had the they had scorpion stingers and all of that, but they also had their own power and everything. And the best way I could describe it is, if anyone has played or watched anything relating to Warhammer Fantasy, Kolek Suneater, the Dragon Ogre. Imagine him, except instead of that, it being a giant that looks kind of similar to him, with a scorpion stinger for a tail. And Nagrasek was able to use these forces in quite effective ways. He was able, at this point though, when he was creating these, the forces did have some benefit, where there were a couple of offshoot demon factions that had tried to rebel, so a lot of the Scorpio got committed to pretty much devastating them. But when they were committed, they were sent. They were scattered about a little bit. This was before the Aphalas barrier. Some were sent up to Arasin into the steppes. Some were sent to Destinal, and some were even sent to attack the Fayoum. This was Nagrasek's. Nagrasek primarily used these to try to subdue or get allegiances one way or the other with steppe tribes, to try and coordinate offensives and everything, but also to try and make sure that the Ice Elves didn't really do anything. That's why he went after the Fayoum, to starve them of a potential ally. And pretty much they got noted and they got identified, and it became the objective of the Bladed Council and the Protector races and the Creators and just everyone to just destroy every single one of these creatures, because they were just too powerful. They were so insanely strong, because the ancient Scorpions were designed as protectors, as guardians. They had a limited immunity to a lot of the magic as well of Aphalas, so enchanters were hard pressed against them, and it's just all sorts. And the steppe tribes were pretty much, aside from Karbalez, the rest of the steppe tribes at that point were completely ill-equipped to deal with something like that. And the Dracons, who probably could, are locked in Destinal and the Archipelago. They were a bit too far out. And I'm not going to reveal if they were successful in wiping them all out, because, truth be told, I haven't actually decided yet. So it might be an insert that a couple, or one or two or something, may have escaped. But it is also notable that you do, just in general, you see odd sections of the demons get operating elsewhere, like some of them break off and link up with bandit tribes in the steppes. Others end up working alongside Medeiros. I mean, when it came to the... Medeiros is a questionable one because of its origins and everything, and the Half-Ogres are going to be getting an episode very, very soon. But you've got the Sapphire Pirates up there as well. Like, the demons were seen as forces that had to be dealt with. They had to be removed. They were symbols of the forces that wanted to just destroy or take over Aphalas. They had to be dealt with. And yet you still have factions that were willing to work with them. And I mean, the most notable time of all of that is by far Galakaros, because of what happens in the Southern Fire Pits. Tonreef and the forces of the Demesne launch forward after Sarakoth gets overwhelmed by Sinevia's forces, and Tonreef commands the demons to attack, and Narakash, Sinevia's ogre lieutenant in all of that, is also well, I went into it in the Goblin video, he is an Obsidian enchanter who is also able to access more of those elements, and pretty much around Hedometh, between the valleys, and a little bit around here, you had clashes of hordes upon hordes of demons against hordes upon hordes of undead and demons. It was the battle of dead or demon, and probably the biggest just mosh pit of blades and axes and fighting and all the rest of it that Aphalas has really ever seen, because you had two forces that could just almost consistently replenish themselves just going at it, and it pretty much boiled down to whose magic would run out first, and it turned out that Tonrith was the one who did. Partly that, also partly Tonrith had his own agenda, his own schemes that he needed to, and he ended up fleeing to Pyramid of the Deceased, but under Nagrasak's instruction as well. It is the case that bought vital time for the rest of Shah to prepare, and it's one of these things where the demons did not directly work with them, and they never actually do. But if it wasn't for the demons fighting that battle, Narakash would have been able to march over Shah and would have been pretty dang unstoppable. The dwarves, the Dark Elves, had just been caught up in an assassination attempt in both their leadership. The dwarves had also just been slightly decapitated by the death of Jolkorn, their king. And the agility are obviously quite split. So, and at this point the Aphalas, and because this is Galakaros, at this point the Aphalas barriers up, so being able to go to and from is very difficult for them. But, yes. So Netvia was the one who taught Nagrasak how to conjure the demons, and vice versa. Nagrasak, he did not only teach Tonrith, he taught all of the Kunroks he had. Every single one of them, including Tonrith, was taught how to create demons. But all the others kind of fell for one reason or the other, but Tonrith remained. And there are some notable demon figures who are scattered around the lore. Narazil, the Harbinger, is probably one of the biggest. And I know for those of you who have watched it on stream or YouTube, another who I actually did finally make the decision that I think I am going to pour him over is Malkish, my sort of Uruk character from Blood in the West. He's going to have a version over here as a demon as well. Although I'm not too sure what I'm going to do with him yet, so that's going to be a bit different. But Narazil is the Harbinger. He was a Lieutenant Korathadar, and I was going to bring his image up, but I can't find it, and he was just so devastating. But in terms of actual power quality, the demons are gram for gram a match to any human force, aside from possibly the Fayoum, or Onokrith. Probably Onokrith, actually, over the Fayoum. But they are such a hefty match. I will also note that I haven't actually decided whether the Ice Elves have demons upon their ranks, primarily because of the fact that they have no fire pits there, and also fire pits wouldn't really work in the ice, but unless they were buried in the mountains, so I haven't actually decided that yet, but the demons are Nagrasak's primary force, because he is able, well, he and Tonrith together with their demonic forces and sort of some support from their allies, some vital support in fact, are able to completely, most of the time, completely and utterly occupy the forces of both Destinal and Shah. And I mean, the Twin Isles are a bit hit and miss, because that depends on where the ogres get deployed, or things like that, but between the two of them, they can occupy two continents with almost just their demonic forces. And it's just choice, it is focus, it is decisions, but it is also something I will note that Nagrasak's forces are almost naturally more disciplined than Tonriv or any of the other Kunrus, or even Xenevius. Nagrosaks are the more disciplined of all of them, although they are also the ones that rebel the most, so it's a bit of a mix there. But by disciplined, I mean disciplined as in like marching orders and ranks, and that way they can form proper formations, whereas Tonrivs are a bit more... He does have ranks that he builds up that are able to be more elite and everything, but the majority of his forces, his advanced forces, are just chaotic. Now, there is something else that I do want to address, and that is the fall of Darenthal. By the time of the books, Darenthal has fallen, and it had fallen quite several years before, but the Narracorn in here is gone, and in its place, covering almost the entire route, are the Fire Pit Marshes. The Fire Pit Marshes were an attempt by Tonriv to create more fire pits, but there are two reasons why it didn't work. One is the fact that Tonriv just simply did not have he had the knowledge, he just didn't have the power within himself or his lieutenants of the time to be able to do this. And the other problem is that at the time Darenthal fell, there were 3 mages in charge. Myloth and 2 others. They were the sort of 3 key figures. And the Dracons had just been in a civil war and it was a whole mess. But one of these other mages, not Myloth, one of the others, put a innate barrier around the Narracorn in here. They could not prevent what had already happened because it had already been turned to this like heated marshland or everything. But what they were able to do is put a seal on it that someone like Nagrosak could have broken almost at any point, but someone of Tonriv's caliber was unable to, even with what limited support he had from any magic users. So that is the reason why the Fire Pit Marshes get almost halted in their advance, but if he had been able to do that, it would have pretty much sealed his dominion over this land, mostly. And, I mean, House Hillor, which is there, and House Ravket, which is there, they would have been in incredible danger. And so would have the other houses as well. Quashriel, Lethos, Telik. Matten and Catfault maybe not so much, but the ones that were on the front line really would be. But also with the access of the ports, Tonriv would be able to attack anywhere. And I want to note that whilst I haven't gone into detail about the fall of the Dracons yet in terms of lore, Tonriv gets incredibly close to have actually been able to do a whole lot more than what he's able to do in the books. And if it hadn't been for a couple of very quick actions by the Dracons, that would have been the case. But I think that is where we are going to wrap these things up for today, so I'm going to turn that music off. I know it wasn't the most apt music for lore, but there we go. So, yes. Thank you all for watching. I am still working on some other lore bits as well, like the disaster at Rollothine, which ironically has to do with Tonriv. But yes, I'm doubling up with the lore and everything now, and I do just want to note one more thing, and that is that there is going to be a new link in the channel description, and that is because I have finally got the podcast onto Spotify. so please do go and have a listen to them. But for now, that is all. Thank you all very much for watching. I am sorry that I couldn't find the images for that. I have a feeling they may be on my other laptop. Or on one of my USBs or something. Though, thank you all for watching. Please do comment, like, and subscribe. Please do comment on any future lore videos you would like to see, if you would like to see a breakdown of any characters, because I've been thinking about doing some of that. And please do check out the links in the description, the Facebooks, the Instagram, the Ko-fi page, my Twitch, the Spotify, TikTok, all of these different things. And yes, I am going to try and be doubling up on the lore. I will note that as the lore videos maybe ramp up a little bit, as well as podcast episodes coming back, the gaming content may placate a little bit. But I think that's what I want to sort of get to. I want to get to the point where the lore and the books are, again, the majority, and the creative stuff, and then the gaming stuff sort of in. So, like, it'll still put the content up, but it will be not as regular as I was originally intending, and that's by own choice. That's not because I've hit a brick wall or something. It's just because this is my main focus. But, yes. Please do comment, like, and subscribe. I think I already said that once, and if so, sorry for repeating myself. And I will catch you on the next lore video, which will either be, and it's going to be one of two things. It is either going to be the 9 Days of Silver, the next animated battle element, where the Dracons held the Storm Peak for 9 days against the forces of Tonreef. Or I say the Dracon forces, I quite literally mean a collection of enchanters and the Dracon's chief guardians, known as the Silver Paladins. But if it is not that, then what it will be is either a video on the half-ogres or a video on all the creatures of Aphalas, all the creatures that play a significant role, and other smaller groups. So it will be one of those two. 3, even. Anyway, I'm going to be off now, so thank you all for watching, and welcome to the Kingdom of Aphalas and the world of Fellowmind books.